Hello again. We're back, and it feels like the gaming news streets have never been hotter. It's it's just non-stop news around here, and maybe good, maybe bad. Not really good this week, unfortunately. But we're here to talk about it. I'm Austin. That's Pat. We're gonna just jump right into it because there's a lot going on. We're gonna be talking about three big topics today. Xbox. Did Phil Spencer leave on purpose, or was he fired? Uh, Bluepoint, which came out, what was that, last week now?
Hmm.
PlayStation decided to close down Bluepoint Games, and we're going to obviously criticize them for that. And then third up, Todd Howard. He went on the Kind of Funny Games podcast and said a bunch of things, which means that the internet was set ablaze. And so we will naturally be talking about that as well. But we're going to start off with Xbox, like I said. For those of you who do not know, on Friday, Phil Spencer was announced or leaked or a little bit of both, depending on how you read things, decided that he is stepping down as CEO of Xbox. Alongside him, Sarah Bond has quit, who was his second in command, and they've put in a new CEO who was in the AI side of the Microsoft business. But we will get to her in a little bit. First, we're going to start with Phil Spencer. So it came out on Friday kind of quick because the reporting is that somehow it was leaked to IGN and it was on their desk and they were going to put this out. And so Microsoft quickly had to put together a message before IGN could post it. The plan originally was going to be that it would be announced today, Monday, which would be technically his last day as the CEO. He's going to stay on through the summer to help the new CEO, Asha, with, or I believe that's how you pronounce it,
Hmm.
uh, while she transitions into the role. And this all was shocking in and of itself, but specifically the way that this kind of came out brought up a lot of questions in people's minds of, did Phil leave of his own accord, or was he pushed out, so to speak, by Satya? And I'll kind of give the pieces of tidbits that I've seen on both sides, and then I'll leave it to Pat to give us his opinion on how he thinks it went. On the he decided to retire side, there was a reporting last year about the potential of Phil retiring, so much so that Satya had to come out and give a statement saying basically he doesn't expect Phil is going to retire anytime soon. Phil, in his statement, which I'll read probably in a little bit, maybe not his is not that important, but he says that he has, in the fall, he had gone to Satya and told him that he was considering retiring. And there was also a leaked story that he went on like a 2 or 3 week vacation and basically ghosted the entire team that had to wait multiple weeks for sign-offs.
Hmm.
And then when he came back from that, he kind of started saying like, I don't know if I'm want to do this for much longer. On the other side of that is, one, the rushed nature of this being put out, and the fact that, typically when you have this high profile of a retirement, it's not usually the day before or the day of that you announce it, especially when you're a publicly traded company like this. You probably put that out ahead of time. You tell them who the new person is going to be and all of that to kind of give everyone uh, time to digest what that's going to be. Also, the fact that Sarah Bond just quit is another piece that people are using to say it doesn't seem like this was necessarily planned. Notably, Sarah Bond was she was Phil's number two and was who everyone thought was going to be the next CEO when Phil decided he was done. But the reports after the fact now are saying there's a lot of people within Xbox who are kind of relieved that Sarah didn't get that position because they didn't particularly like her style of leadership. But that's neither here nor there. That's kind of the big points for the pro, for and against. Where do you land on this one with Phil?
Here's where I land. All right, we gotta start at the very fact of it. Because yeah, if you were paying attention to I forget what exactly. I think it was the mass layoffs last year. A lot of people suspected that Phil's time at Xbox was coming to a close, but we all figured, well, they've got the 25th anniversary next year. Maybe he rides this year out. We'll see. Uh, it would make more sense for him to stay on because he's been the face of Xbox for so long now. Him and Sarah
Mhm.
Bond have been kind of front facing for a good while now. So word on the street being what it was, they did come out and say around July 2025 that no, Phil's not stepping down. He's not retiring just yet. Um, and then all of a sudden, for it to come out like this, I do think there was a plan for them to shift out. Whether or not they were going to give his position to Sarah Bond or Asha remains to be seen. I am of the opinion that something I I'm of the opinion that this none of this was planned. This is not how this was supposed
Mhm.
to go.
Mhm.
You take a look, and we'll talk about Asha in a minute. There's definitely some crumbs, some clues there, but um, just if you look at Sarah Bond's LinkedIn page, a lot of people are pointing this out. She had a post 4 hours before it was announced she was resigning, and just resigning like effective immediately.
Mhm.
And it was asking for a survey for Xbox fans to fill out. Now, granted, that could be a scheduled thing. She could have scheduled that like weeks in advance, and then something happened. Blah blah blah. Whatever. It's entirely possible that that happened. But I don't think whatever happened with Phil and Satya Nadella and Asha. I'm blanking on her last name for some reason. Um, I don't think it was entirely in her favor. I think there's probably some merit to people within not being super fond of her for coming up with this is an Xbox ad campaign, people not liking that. So I think there's probably at least some merit to that. Um, that being said, I don't think any of this was planned. I think even we'll talk about Greg Miller in a second when he interviewed Todd Howard, but I was listening to them talk about it and he looked through his emails. He got word from someone, not naming names because he's a professional, but this was not at all planned. That's what he claims.
Mm.
And I would tend to believe that.
I interestingly gonna fall on the other side of this one. I think this is incredibly muddied, uh, mixed with because of the fact of the IGN piece of it that I
Mm-hmm.
think is giving off false signals of what was happening. Just because the Sarah Bond thing is weird, and that's the hardest piece to kind of put together. So I don't think either of us can really certainly say one way or another. I'm probably like 60-40. It was planned. Uh, but the reporting of Satya having to come out because there was so much around like, is Phil going to retire? I think that is too damning for me. It lines up with what Phil said of like he had told him back that he was, I mean, I guess he said fall and July is not really fall, but close ish.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, he said he had told Satya that the pieces, which we'll get to more with Asha, her last name is Sharma,
Sharma.
uh,
I knew it was
by the way,
something like that. Okay.
is he Phil references that he had been talking with her for the last couple of months about what it's going to be like working with her and how that's all going to transition. So to me, it reads as messy, but I think that Phil planned to retire. I don't know why they thought this was the way to do it. Like, why wouldn't Phil, like I said before, kind of flag this earlier so it wasn't like, hey, I'm going out the door and this is my last day? Because that, I think, more than anything, gives off the idea of like, no, this was not planned,
Mm-hmm.
which is not good when you're talking about a guy who has worked at Microsoft since 1988. He started as an intern in 1988 at Microsoft and worked all there all this time, all the way to become the CEO. You would hope they had a better rollout than this. I mean, even Friday to Monday, you would hope that if they got jumped on a Friday, they had this figured out enough that they didn't have to just like fly by the seat of their pants to put something out before the IGN article, right? Like, hopefully, someone this tenured, you'd have a better plan than that. It doesn't really seem like that, but I don't know. I like I said, I think it's probably 60-40. He did choose this.
Yeah, and I do think that there, to some degree, part of what happened was part of the plan. I just think the timing of it and the way it all rolled out was not part of the plan.
Bad.
Uh,
Certainly, I mean, the Sarah Bond, like I said, the Sarah Bond piece is hard to place in this, right? Just
mhm,
because, okay, if Phil had been working with Asha for 3 months, let's say, either he was hiding it from Sarah, or uh she knew and was going to resign the same day that Phil did. And so it was just happened to be that like the Friday before the Monday, she was gonna her social media team was gonna put this out. And that's still weird. Like even if it went to plan and everything came out on Monday, the idea that they were gonna put
mhm.
this out on a Friday and then on a Monday she was gonna go, I'm out of here is a little fishy.
Well, yeah, and the thing with it's really weird to me the nature of them resigning, and like Sarah Bonds was effective immediately. Like I don't think she came in to work today. Phil, I think this was his last day officially, which either way, it's still weird. I think they're both remaining on as advisors for Asha moving forward for like at
I don't
least
think
the
Sarah is.
summer.
I think Sarah
Well,
it was framed to me that I saw that she quit.
Well, she put out a statement later, and it was pretty late. And she did mention
Hmm.
that she would be in an advisory role for Asha, at least for
Okay, I
a
didn't see
little
that one.
bit. Well, I don't blame you because I don't think her team may put one out until much later. So, um,
Yeah, they were not prepared for this for sure.
no, I think the Sarah Bond part was definitely not planned. I think the Phil part, to an extent, wasn't planned. I do believe that the intent was from on high that we get Sasha, or oh my God, not Sasha, Asha in as
Asha.
the CEO of Xbox. Um, I don't know. It's just very messy right now, and they did their best with what they had, and I think in a way it makes it look almost intentional. But I think just how messy the Phil and Sarah part of it is, there's no part of me that thinks that this was how they wanted this to go.
Hmm. All right, moving on from Phil, R.I.P. Phil. I'm sure he will enjoy all the money he made in his
Hmm.
retirement. I'm
Hmm.
not concerned about him. I'm sure we'll see him playing lots of games all the same. His Xbox account will
Yes,
still be out there.
1000%.
Moving on to the new CEO, Asha. To go a little bit into her background, she's a former VP of product and engineering at Meta. Then she went on to Instacart, where she was the COO. And then she came over to, well, way back, she was in marketing at Microsoft. And then she's now coming back again. She came on to work on the core AI team, where she led that before now becoming the CEO of Xbox to bring them into this new uh, future. And she also, alongside of that, promoted Matt Booty to like chief of
Yes,
content or something
chief of content
along
sounds right.
along those lines. Um, and then I will. Oh, this is missing something. Oh no, sorry. Okay, I'm just not reading correctly. I want to read through Asha's full statement because I'm gonna. We'll talk about what we think of Asha as the new CEO, and what her kind of view of the future is. So this is going to be a long statement because she kind of put out some bullet points here, but I want to read the whole thing because I think it's going to be pretty important to this conversation.
Hmm.
All right. And this was a note that she put out to the staff as well as seemingly got to IGN in some form or another for this article here. All right. My first job is simple: understand what makes this work and protect it, that being Xbox. That starts with three commitments. First, great games. Everything begins here. We must have great games beloved by players before we do anything. Unforgettable characters, stories that make us feel, innovative gameplay, and creative excellence. We will empower our studios, invest in iconic franchises, and back bold new ideas. We will take risks. We will enter new categories and markets where we can add real value, grounded in what players care about most. I promoted Matt Booty in honor of this commitment. He understands the craft and the challenges of building great games, has led teams that deliver award-winning work, and has earned the trust of game developers across the industry. Second, the return of Xbox. We will recommit to our core Xbox fans and players, those who have invested with us for the past 25 years, and to the developers who build the expansive universes and experiences that are embraced by players across the world. We will celebrate our roots with a renewed commitment to Xbox, starting with console, which has shaped who we are. It connects us to the players and fans who invest in Xbox and to the developers who build ambitious experiences for it. Gaming now lives across devices, not within the limits of any single piece of hardware. As we expand across PC, mobile, and cloud, Xbox should feel seamless, instant, and worthy of the communities we serve. We will break down barriers so developers could build once and reach players everywhere without compromise. That was weird. Hold on. We will break down barriers so developers can build once and reach players everywhere without compromise. Third, future of play. We are witnessing the reinvention of play. To meet the moment, we will invent new business models and new ways to play by leaning into what we already have iconic teams, characters, and worlds that people love. But we will not treat those worlds as static IP to milk and monetize. We will build a shared platform and tools that empower developers and players to create and share their own stories. As monetization and AI evolve and influence this future, we will not chase short term efficiency or flood our ecosystem with soulless AI slop. Games are and always will be art, crafted by humans and created with the most innovative technology provided by us. All right, that was a long statement. The final piece that I'll say, because this has been a big sticking point for a lot of people, is Asha does not have a background in video games. She is not a gamer. She's out in front about that. She does have a now public Xbox profile, just like Phil Spencer did, and it appears to have been created about a month ago and started playing games just recently. Um, from all of that, what is your initial thought of Asha being the new CEO of Xbox?
So, all right. Here's the thing. You listed her history here. She worked used to work at Xbox. She's gone on to work at places like Meta and
Microsoft.
Instacart and yeah, now Microsoft and now Xbox. Um it was someone pointed out to me, and I did a little bit of digging. She helped bring Instacart back into profitability. I think right there is a huge part of why they're bringing her on here. You don't really need to look too far into Xbox's past to see like poor console sales, especially over the last holiday. They haven't really mentioned how many people are subscribing to Game Pass in a lot. They haven't mentioned that in a while, so I imagine that's stagnating. Um, I think ever since the Activision acquisition, Microsoft, Satya Nadella, other people on high at Microsoft have been looking at Xbox with like eagle eyes, saying, "Hey, we bought all that for you. Where's the profitability?" And I think part of bringing Asha in is to kind of turn that ship around. What that looks like, hard to say. I think she's saying the right things, but again, is that just lip service to get the fans on her side? Hard to say at this point. So I'm cautious. I'll say cautious. No
Yeah,
direction really, but
I think this is her statement means nothing to me. I mean, I read that whole thing
yeah.
and mostly she said nothing. Uh, I only read it so that you could understand kind of the perspective of her and get kind of her voice a little bit. Because what I don't, this is not from us, is not going to be the like bash Asha because she's not a gamer and like she can't be
Mm-mm.
CEO kind of talk. Like that's not our style. Like a lot of the internet's going to do. Like I'm not going to break down her Xbox uh, profile and whether or not it's her or someone else. I couldn't care less.
Yeah.
And but what I do think is that putting her in this place shows a very clear directive. And I'll kind of build that here for a second. So imagine being Microsoft in like 2019 to 2021, right? Right before COVID into COVID, I guess pushing more like 20 end of 22, 23, like to the end of COVID. And how gaming was going like this, right? Like the profits, the revenue,
Mm-hmm.
everyone was gaming. Your Microsoft are like, all right, we're going to capitalize on this. We expect this going forward. We're looking for growth. We're going to build and build this Xbox out platform out, right? We're going to be
Mm-hmm.
everywhere on all the things so that you can get in with us. And now, a couple of years removed from that, and we're seeing console sales go down. None of the iconic franchises under Xbox are in a great spot. Um, and they're all like Satya's looking around like, I thought this was a growth industry. I thought this was the next big thing. I thought we were going to be making all of this money in this space, and we're not. And so what he did was he took someone who's got a proven track record of growing companies, right? Like the one that I'll reference here specifically being Instacart, and
Hmm.
getting them, like you said, back to profitability, right? She was the COO. So she was directly responsible for the operations and getting them back into the right direction. That's what they brought her in here to do, is to make Xbox a growth part of the company once again. Will she be able to do that? I don't know. They're in a kind of a weird spot, right? Because if you compare them, we'll compare them to Epic for a second. The big thing for Epic, right, is Fortnite, and the amount of money you can make from an individual in Fortnite is functionally infinite. It's not actually infinite in the sense that there's only a certain amount of money, but you can continue to buy skins and buy skins and buy skins and buy skins and over and over again to some infinite number value, right? Whereas Xbox kind of uh, decided on Game Pass, which there is a set revenue you can make from an individual. You can make 20, $30 a month per individual, per subscriber. And so you're kind of capped at that number. And so that puts them into a weird spot of, how do you start growing again? Because notoriously, like, streaming services are kind of a slow growth situation once they reach maturity. You kind of reach a point where your uh, invasion into the well, I can't think of the right word, but like your percentage in the market effectively reaches a point where it's pretty hard to see really big growth there. And so she's kind of in an interesting spot. I'm not sure how she's going to do that. We'll kind of have to wait and see on that one. She makes all these points about being committed to Xbox and to the franchises that they have. The first photo that they put out of Matt Booty and Asha together is with Halo in the background, because that's the big gaming franchise for Xbox. But they don't really have any that are in like this amazing spot. I guess Microsoft, right? Microsoft, Minecraft.
Hmm.
Minecraft is in a good spot. Um, but Call of Duty, you know, uh, Halo, like those big name ones for them have not been in a good place for a while now. And so it's going to be interesting to see. I wish Matt Booty, as the content officer, had more of a statement about what they're actually going to do. I'm not going to read his statement because it doesn't really give us much.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm not really sure that they gave us enough of a direction to really know what's going to happen here, other than reading the tea leaves of who Asha is.
Yep. I think having Matt Booty on as CEO or chief content officer or whatever his position is, I'm just gonna say something different every time I mention him. It gives me a little bit of faith because he's been there forever. He's been head of Xbox Game Studios for a minute now, so it's like I have faith that he at least has the right mindset when it comes to making good games. Fingers crossed. Obviously, I don't know. Uh, so yeah, I mean, we have the stuff that Seamus Blackley was saying earlier today too. Like, a lot of concerns, and I think a lot of those are valid, but I don't. It's hard for me to say anything without any. I guess without them having done anything. Really. But I know that Asha's talking a big game on Twitter. A lot of people are saying, I don't know if you saw this, that her response to a lot of tweets were AI generated.
Yes, I did
Um,
see this. Yes.
which honestly, based on how she's responding to some of these people, I could totally see that. But she's made a lot of she's talking a big game that's definitely intended to get Xbox people riled up. Like, should I bring the blades back to the dashboard, and then talking about like bringing Halo back and stuff. So a lot of lip service, and what's it ultimately led to? I mean, nothing. It's too soon to say anything yet. So yeah, I don't know.
I I think the big thing with that is it's hard to square the peg of, you weren't in the gaming space, but now you're making all these comments like you were deep in the gaming space, and it's
Hmm.
like, how do you put those two things together, right? I don't. That feels like the social media team might be taking it a little too far, more than anything. Like, I mean, maybe she's tweeting all these things off herself, but I would imagine, uh, your first 2 days as official CEO, you're probably pretty busy. You're not just like writing off like all these tweets, just firing them off, all these replies to people.
Yeah.
So I don't know about that one.
Mm-hmm.
Uh we'll have to wait and see with her. The other big thing that like the fact that she came from the AI group scares a lot of people,
Yeah.
right? And she says the right
Mm-hmm.
thing in her statement. She says like she's not going to do any AI slop. She wants to find the right way to use it. Um, but it's kind of a hard sell in this. Like we've seen with like what's happened with Sven and everyone else as we've had these AI debates in the gaming world of there's just a lot of gamers who don't want that. It's very clear that, and it's a very contentious issue. So when your last job was head of core AI at Microsoft and now you're leading the gaming division, that scares a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
so I think she's just it's kind of a marketing nightmare for her a little bit.
Yeah. I'll even throw out there too, like you have the head of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, who can't take a shit without using AI. Like he,
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw his message about Phil leaving, but let me just read like the first couple sentences. And I want you to tell me if
Okay.
a human wrote this, okay? Gaming has been part of Microsoft from the start. Flight Simulator shipped before Windows, and you can practically ray trace a line from DirectX in the 90s to the accelerated compute era we're in today. Is that a human or is that a bot?
I I mean, I'll go with the bit and say it's an AI, but I'm not. I would say that I'm less convinced that that's an AI than you are.
I mean, as we celebrate Xbox's 25th year, the opportunity and innovation agenda in front of us is expansive. Today we reach over it. Yeah, I mean, I don't. We don't need to go too far into that. I just know that he's very into AI, but he's trying to get more of Microsoft into that stuff. Everybody seems to think that that's where business should go. That's just kind of a sign of the times. But I think a result of that is having someone like Asha in there, and I'm willing to give her the benefit of the doubt and say that we're not going to be doing AI slap, but I do think that to some extent AI is going to be brought into game production over at Xbox Game Studios. What that looks like, I
I
don't
think
know.
there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
The thing for me that's hard about any of that is I'm not sure that there's a big distinction between an AI wrote it and the social media team uh and the communications team
Mm-hmm.
like read over all of these statements 50 times and rewrote them and said we need to change this word to this word because it's going to sound better. Like that's where I'm just like I don't know if that's just social media training or if that's AI. They're both very similar.
Yeah, I mean, business speak does tend to like border on that, so I totally understand that. Just some of it feels a little bit too like, what's the word? Sanitary? No, that's not the right word. Sterile. That's what I was looking for.
Mhm.
But
I think the worst, like the thing for me with Satya's statement was he really didn't say much about Phil,
no, not really.
which is kind of wild. I mean, I don't know. I guess that's a point in the side of maybe they let Phil go, but
Yeah,
it's a little weird to me. Like he really says almost nothing about Phil.
yeah. No,
It's more
yeah.
about like, hey, here's the new people.
Isn't
Happy
that
they're on board.
exciting? Yeah. Let's go Xbox.
Yeah. All right. Final topic on the Xbox piece. Whether you can take this either of two ways or both ways if you want to do it.
Hmm.
What do you think Xbox is going to look like in the new Asha post Phil Asha era? We'll call it, or and slash or what do you want the future of Xbox to look like?
Now, okay. Because I think we see, we talked about her work over at Instacart and Meta and how she's brought, Instacart back into profitability. Uh, like we'll talk about Bluepoint in a second, but does this I don't want to, be like a doom speaker, but like does this mean we lose some studios here? Do we lose some
I would say
folks?
almost certainly.
Because I mean, I'm just point in it, I'm just gonna point out right now. We already lost just over the last few months the initiative. We actually I think that's the only one, but we also had a bunch of projects canceled, like Rare's Everwild. We have, I mean, I could go on and on, but um, like I'm just looking at a list of like main studios. Like Playground's probably safe. I think people over at Bethesda are probably safe. Turn 10, I start questioning things a little bit. Rare, I don't know. In Exile has Clockwork Revolution. Does that get canceled? Does that make it? I don't know. Ninja Theory, I know Hellblade 2 did not perform as well as they would have liked. I know Obsidian had a particularly not great year last year. So I have to question, what are we losing, and when. So that's immediately where my head goes. And I have another question too, but if you want to comment on that first.
I I would well, the one I would say for sure that I don't think is going anywhere is Clockwork Revolution. I think that is a lot of hype and is very close. And
Sure.
so, I mean, if that majorly flopped, maybe the studio, I would be more concerned about studios that don't have something that are close to releasing.
Yeah.
I think what you'll see very quickly is the reorging of what's going to come out and what's going to get canceled. Like if you thought the amount of canceled games we had prior uh, was a lot, I think we're going to see a lot more, whether officially announced or not. Because now with Matt Booty and Asha there, they're going to have different priorities of what kinds of games they think should be made. And so if you're not close to, like, if you can't finish this thing and wrap it up soon and send it out, I think you're probably going to be looked at. And I would suspect, you know, that some of them don't make it.
Yep, I'm looking at Compulsion. They just put out South of Midnight last year, which did win, accessibility, I think, at the Game
Mhm.
Awards. It has plenty of love for it, but that's an artistic game more than anything. That's not bringing in the dollar signs for them.
I think the big question is where do you think they land on Game Pass? Because if the answer is like they make note of here, they want, to be able to play Xbox everywhere, as
Mm-hmm.
much as everyone didn't like that marketing. Uh, and if they want to keep going with Game Pass, you have to have enough studios to continually put out content, right? Like the whole idea from the beginning was they wanted like at least one game a month every month so that you were like always wanting to be in Game Pass. You never wanted to give up your subscription. And so if they're going to stick to that as their core business model, they need studios.
They need studios or they need something else to incentivize you subscribing to their highest tier. I've
Yeah.
heard rumblings that they want to somehow include a World of Warcraft subscription, other various Xbox subscriptions in that ultimate premium tier of Game Pass. And I think that speaks to that. I honestly, because it's impossible to have this many studios and having so many projects. Because right, you think of this year, we have Forza Horizon 6 on the way. Was it 6 or yeah, I think it's 6. You have Gears of War E Day. We have the new Fable. Like this is going to be a banner year for Xbox Studio games, but I don't think you can keep that up. I don't think there's enough to keep putting games out like that. Like we always point to, I think it was Aaron Greenberg or Matt Booty that said a few years ago that we want to have a new first party title out every fiscal quarter. And I think they're going to hit that this year, but I don't think, again, that you can maintain that. I think this is the first time they'll be able to do that in a very long time. Maybe, okay, maybe last year too, they were able to do it. But I mean, if you want to launch games that are going to get people's heads to turn, it's not going to be South of Midnight. It's not going to be Kiln. Um, so I don't know. I think you got to get third party titles or some other form of incentive to get people to buy into that marketplace.
I really I would love, this is one where area where I think Asha's expertise, although she's not a developer, right? Like not on the developing side, but this kind of like growth model, get things profitable, like cut the fat kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe she can help them, and Matt alongside her can help the video game developer world figure out how to not spend hundreds of millions of dollars in half a decade in between games. Like, because I really think this is the crux of a lot of the issues at the AAA level, right? That we talk about of it's just like no one knows how to price a game anymore. And I don't mean that on the like revenue side, but on the cost side of it. No one knows how to properly size what you can spend on these games and how long you can spend on them. It's like, how did they spend, $400 million or whatever was reported on Concord and get to that? Like, that's what the game was.
Mm-hmm.
I just, maybe a new voice will help with that because it's not an Xbox specific issue, but this is a pervasive issue that we need to figure out because it's like with Crimson Desert coming out, which looks to be this incredible game. They can put, in Southeast Asia and I guess Asia more widely if you include China, they can put out games quicker and cheaper because they don't have to pay nearly as much, right? They don't have everyone living in LA or San Francisco or Austin and paying high costs to developers and all of that. Like we have to find, if you want American based games to be made, ways to make them for less money and to make them quicker because they're kind of in a bad spot right now.
Yeah, I think ever since the budget was revealed for Spider-Man 2 and hearing how long development took on that, which is really just an iteration on the first Spider-Man game, it was like it kind of opened my eyes to just kind of how bloated everything is in game development. I think what's that one meme? It's like I want my games to look worse and be shorter and
Yeah.
it's like I'm ruining the punchline of that. Oh, and I'm not kidding. This was the final bit, and it's like, yeah, absolutely. I think we can make. We don't need to make a realistic looking Gears of War game. I think as long as it looks mostly okay, I think, and you can get that out with like every 2 to 3 years, I'm cool with that. And especially for and that's what I like about Double Fine. They're able to do that more or less every other year, put out something. Like we have two games from them over the course of like 6 months, which is awesome. Um, okay, maybe a little more than 6 months, but I mean, again, that's not what's putting Xbox gamers on an Xbox. It's Halo, it's Gears of War, it's for Forza Horizon, and those games don't take very quickly to make. So I don't know
Mhm.
how you can streamline that a little bit better. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, certainly think we're the big issue is not necessarily us, right? Like we'll play. I mean, we were just before this started talking about Steam Next Fest, which we'll bring up at the end too. But like, you and I will play any kind of game. It doesn't matter. It could be a super indie. It could be a Expedition 33 level indie. It could be double A doesn't really exist unless you're going to put Expedition
Mm,
33 in there or a triple game. Like we'll play anything. It doesn't the I mean, we fucking playing like Lethal Company. It's not like the graphics on that are like incredible, right?
yeah.
It's really about gameplay. I mean, it's the thing that separates movies from video games. It's why like there can only really be a subset of games that are trying to emulate movies because it's really about, is your core gameplay good? And if that part of it is good, the graphics don't necessarily matter to us as much. Now, you talk about people who only play like sports games and Call of Duty and Halo and stuff like that. They're only in the AAA space. That can matter a little bit more. But at some point the costs get so high that reaching that audience is no longer worth it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
Call of Duty's got its own issues, right? There's all these leaks coming out now about Microsoft potentially asking them to be less beholden to the yearly release schedule so that they can actually innovate on their games. The big piece being like, how did they not catch the extraction shooter genre, right? They tried to do DMZ, but that didn't really work. And some
Mm-hmm.
of the reporting was like they felt that they aren't nimble enough because they're so beholden to this that they can move with the industry. And I just think that's one of the areas that these big studios that they have kind of need to work themselves out. And they've kind of weeded out a lot of their smaller studios.
Mm-hmm. Now,
What was your second question? Did you have
yeah,
off that?
I'm glad you picked up. I was actually gonna bring that up. My second question, and I don't know how much time I want to spend on this, but Um, my other question is they keep saying a lot of back to basics and stuff. Um,
Hmm.
do we think they walk back not having console exclusives? Do we go back to Halo being just on Xbox or
I
what?
don't think so.
You don't think so?
I think that the reason they did that was to chase revenue.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're talking, if you're framing it the way I am, which is that I think they put Asha in the spot to revitalize the growth of Xbox,
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that cutting out a revenue stream like sending the games to other platforms is a good way to do that.
Yeah. I would tend to agree. I think a lot of it too comes from the FCC hearing when they required Activision Blizzard. They said they would, Call of Duty is the big one. They're like, that's got to release on everything, even a Switch. So I think
Mhm.
part of that comes into factor here. I know that, they're saying a lot of stuff to a lot of longtime Xbox fans because longtime Xbox fans feel disenfranchised once they started sharing Halo, once they started sharing Gears of War and Forza with PlayStation. Um, so a lot of people are kind of holding on to the hope that maybe that we start doing that, and I'm inclined to agree with you. I think it's crazy to kind of just be like, actually, we don't want all the people that are on PlayStation 4 or PlayStation 5 because that's a much bigger install base than people on Xbox. So I'm with you on that. I think it'd be stupid to do that, even if you do win back a lot of loyalty from the core Xbox fans. I don't think it warrants leaving that. I don't think the gains would
This
justify that.
this is gonna sound bad when I say it this way, but I'm
Mm.
just gonna say it.
Speak your truth,
What
sister.
is it really worth to win back the core Xbox fan?
Hmm.
Because like this is the thing I don't understand about the criticisms on this piece of it with when it comes to putting it on other consoles and this idea that they need to go back to the Xbox console, like back to the basics of the console.
Hmm.
Why? In this new world that we live in, why do we need to go back to the console? Like the idea that Xbox can be played on your TV or your PC or your console or all of these things, your phone. Like the console is a piece of that. But this idea that we're going to like walk back to the 2000s or the 2010s and we're going to have first party exclusives and we're going to have the Xbox PlayStation console wars back at the forefront like doesn't make any sense to me.
Hmm.
I think that what Xbox really has to do right now is just weather the storm of the bad press of the people who are like, I want the old Xbox back, and just continue to put it out on all of the platforms. You can
Hmm.
have exclusive windows, right? Like the first 6 months, it's only on Xbox so that people get it on Game
Sure.
Pass, whatever the case
Yeah.
may be. But then you get the revenue from sending it to PlayStation. And yeah, you should make a new Xbox console. But this idea that things are going to go backwards in the center of place or of Xbox's plans are centered on the console itself, I just don't think are coming back.
Hmm.
They've decided to leave the console war and they've decided they want to become a game platform. They want you to be playing in their platform wherever you're playing, whether that's console, whether that's PC, whether that's your TV, whether that's the cloud, whatever it is, they want it to be on the Xbox gaming platform. And it sounds like from the way she said it, even though she's like, we're going back to the basics, that they are not going away from that. The
Hmm.
immediate next sentence after that was, like you can play it everywhere and we want to continue to push all whatever the case may be, right? So I think this is a short term weather the storm situation for them. And they're just going to continue to push the Xbox everywhere side of it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I would tend to agree. I think she's saying that. I think this only adds credence to me saying this is a bunch of lip service. Because I think, yeah, I mean, despite the negativity that this is an Xbox ad brought, I think the message of it is like you can play these games everywhere, and I think Xbox was always smart for doing that. Um,
Yeah. Why would
and
you re hamstring yourself to a console that lost? Like,
mm-hmm. And
undeniably, they lost the worst generation of console that you could.
yep.
And so they pivoted, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that coming back and being like, all right, we're going to start up the console war again into incredibly high RAM prices is. an idea that makes sense. I just don't. When the Xbox comes out and it's $800, are you going to be excited about that?
Yeah.
I,
Nope.
I don't think so. So like, I just don't see it as a viable path, no matter like what people want to think about that. I think the way that you win back Xbox fans is you make good games. I like
Mm.
you make a good Halo game, you make a good Gears of War game, you make a good Call of Duty now that you own them. It's like that's the way that you win it back. I really think the place and not this is not to beat out Phil, but the thing that Phil didn't do well was on the content side, right? The major uh games series that they had did not flourish under Phil, and that's the part that they need to fix, not the console part.
Yep, I think you start with the games, and if you get that back to a point, maybe you could justify doing console exclusive, boost console sales that way, but you're not there yet. You're not there yet.
And I mean, we keep seeing everyone say like the console generation is probably getting pushed out, right? Like I was talking about the RAM prices. Everyone keeps reporting they think it's 28, 29, 30 even for the different next generation of consoles, even though we had the AMD CEO saying maybe next year. Like I just think
Hmm.
the more and more we see these prices, that they're just not going to release a new generation into that. I just I don't see that.
Yeah. Nope. Yep. I'm with you. I agree.
All right, that was a lot on Xbox. We're gonna move on. We did some bashing of Xbox. Now we can do some bashing of PlayStation. Get both sides of the console war. This was from before our last pod, but that was really focused on state of play. So we didn't. Was it before? It might have been
Nope.
after.
This was
I was
Thursday.
thinking of the other story that we didn't actually cover about High Guard. Never mind. This did come out after that. PlayStation announced that they are closing Bluepoint Games, which, if you guys don't know who that is, I'll kind of walk through the timeline of the last couple of game releases and all of that. They were the ones who released the remakes of or remasters of Shadow of the Colossus and Demon Souls. Shadow of the Colossus was in 2018, and then Demon Souls came out in 2020. And then in 2021, the team was acquired by PlayStation, and they immediately went to go work as a support studio for the release of God of War Ragnarok, which came out in 22. And Pat is raising his hand.
I would also like to point out they were support on some of the other like God of War collections, Eco and Shadow of the Colossus, Metal Gear Solid HD collections, a lot of like early remasters of games and stuff too.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then uh, some of the more recent reporting after we saw that they closed and people started trying to figure out what was going on is when they were working on God of War, they really liked that universe. And so they had pitched a live service God of War game to PlayStation, which was greenlit and then later canceled. And after that game was canceled, they tried to pitch four more games to PlayStation, two of which it were supposedly remasters of some kind, and all of those were turned down before they ever got, like, they were never given a budget or anything like that. They said no to all of them, and so they kind of thought basically the writing was on the wall at that point. They couldn't get anything greenlit, and then here we have them now being closed. And I'll read a snippet of Herman Holst's statement on it, and then I'll let Patrick kind of go on his thoughts on it. Herman said, at the same time, this is in the middle of a statement, we're operating in an increasingly challenging industry environment. Rising development costs, slowed industry growth, changing player behavior, and broader economic headwinds are making it harder to build game sustainability. To navigate this reality, we need to continue adapting and evolving. We've taken a close look at our business to ensure we're delivering today while still well positioned for the future. As a result, we will be closing Bluepoint Games in March. All right, Pat, what is your thoughts on the closure of Bluepoint Games?
Mm, 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 mm. I would have expected a number of other studios before Bluepoint, but given their track record with how things have been going for them lately, this caught me off guard completely. Let me just start there. Um, because I think you look at other studios like Ben's studio that did, Siphon Filter and Days Gone. What are they up to? What are they doing? And this
I
is,
think they had their live service game canned at the same time, roughly, as
mm-hmm,
the God of War one, right?
that sounds right because I know they were working on that. But it's like, this is me lashing out purely, right? It's like, why did this studio have to go? Why did that one not get shut down? It's because like I played Demon Souls the remake. It's phenomenal. It's really good, and I know people really like the Shadow of the Colossus remake too. So this studio is really good at what they do. So I'm my gut level reaction is this is really disappointing, and immediately I start looking at, all right, who can we blame? Herman Holst. Let's go there. Um, their big push into live service, like we talked about it not all that long ago, like it was always a fool's venture, and to say, hey, we got like 5 or 6 or 7 projects that are all that. It's like, what are you thinking? That's not what I think of when I come to PlayStation. I think of a third person action adventure game, and that's not that. So to hear, because I can probably name off, like, we had the Last of Us multiplayer game that was canceled, we had the Spider Man multiplayer game that was canceled, and now a God of War game multiplayer that was canceled. And it's like you hear all these failures line up, and it's like, damn, I hope my favorite studio Bluepoint wasn't a part of that. Oh, they were doing the God of War one. Oh shit. Because for the longest time we didn't know what they were working on, and then it comes out that they were support on Ragnarok, and it's like, okay, so now they're going to do their own thing next, right? And that just never sees the light of day. So a lot of this does come up. I think a lot of the blame does fall on Sony executives for thinking that this push into live service was a good idea, and I don't think we've seen the end of the ramifications of that. But that's just me.
Y- Yeah, this falls squarely at the feet of Herman. And not to say that he was wrong, right? Like let me where he says it. Uh he when he's in his quote when he's saying slowed industry growth, changing player behavior. What I read from that is all about what we were talking about just a little bit ago of the live service piece, right? It used to be back in the day, back in our day, when that GameStop existed and stuff like that, right? Like you would go through lots of games. You could buy a game, you could sell that game back to GameStop, you could get a new game used. Like you just play tons and tons of games. And then as live service games kind of came into the forefront, you have people who just play Fortnite. Like they're the platform of Fortnite is what they spend 90-95% of all of the time that they play games on, right? Same thing with Call of Duty. Same there's lots of them out there. And so the idea that Herman identified that and said we need that but for us is not a bad thought, right? From a business perspective, he's absolutely correct. However, it makes no sense to have Bluepoint Games making a live service game. They have no understanding of how to do that. None. It's the same thing, right? When we had, Rocksteady, the studio behind the Arkham games, making a live service Suicide Squad game, and they have never made a game like that before, right? It's like these. I know they're all making video games, but it's very different to make an RTS, to make a roguelite, to make a first person shooter, to make a single player action adventure game. Like you have specialized uh, expertise you need in these different realms. And so just being like, yeah, you could make a live service game doesn't make a ton of sense. Now, the reporting around the live service game at Bluepoint is that they pitched the live service game to PlayStation, right? But the caveat to that being, you pitch what you know they want, right? You're not going to
Mm-hmm.
pitch games to them that are things that you have no belief that they will greenlight. And so when you've got a head and the executives at large saying we're pushing live service, we want live service games, we're trying to find our version of Fortnite, you're going to be inclined to pitch them a live service game because that's what's going to get you money. And so I I lay all of this squarely at the feet of Herman because it makes no sense. Why would you buy this studio that makes these great remakes in 2021, never have them make a remake or a remaster the entire time that they are part of your company, and then close them down?
Mm-hmm.
It is mind-boggling that this is where we got to. You can have a diversified portfolio. This is the thing that has pissed off PlayStation people. It's not that you're making live service games. It's that all you're trying to make is live service games. It doesn't that doesn't make any sense. Like, just have a diversified portfolio. You can have Bluepoint making remasters, and you can have, Firehawk Studios making a live service game, and you can have Santa Monica Studios making a single player God of War game, and you can have all these different studios making different things. You don't have to put all of your eggs in the live service basket and just kind of choke out the rest of your portfolio here. I'm
Mm-hmm.
just it I don't understand it. Especially because there's the reporting is, like I said, that there were they pitched two remake slash remasters, and one of them is potentially a remaster that is being made right now by a different studio. Maybe that's the God of War remake or remasters that we've already been seen announced. Maybe it's something else. But they tried to get back into their pocket, right? They tried first. They were like, we want to make something new, something different. They pitched the live service game back at Can, and they said, all right, we'll go back to what we're good at. And they still said no.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like I don't understand it, and I blame Herman entirely as a proxy for the executives.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right, moving on. Todd Howard, he decided to jump on the Kind of Funny Games podcast and said a bunch of things that lit the internet ablaze. Uh, and along the same lines of what we're talking about here with Bluepoint Games, he gave his opinion on remakes and remasters. I'll read his quote first. He said, I'm sort of anti remake. I respect the other ones out there, but I really think the age of a game is a part of who and what it is, like its personality and what it represented when it came out. And in this case, he was speaking because Greg was kind of referencing Fallout remastered, for whether you want it to be 3 or 4 or 1 and 2 for that matter, which how Todd had spoken on previously as to saying he didn't really want to do anything with that.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think of his statement there on remakes and remasters?
Uh, I I like his sentiment on it. I think I'm not. I like remakes. I just was speaking the praises of the Demon Souls remake. I think that's a phenomenal game. And I think there's plenty of room to improve on the original Demon Souls that the remake does, even though it still keeps the spirit of how convoluted that game can be. So I generally fall on the side of pro remake, but I also understand where he's coming from here. I think there's a certain charm of playing, let's say, Metal Gear Solid 3, the original, on PlayStation 2 as opposed to the remake that's on modern gen consoles. I think you lose some of that charm and personality um, that was there when it came out. And I think it firmly puts it at a spot in time where it's like, hey, I remember where I was when I played that for the first time. Like, I remember playing Skyrim for the first time, being blown away. And I don't think any remake can capture that spirit. Um, so I definitely see where he's coming from. I know he's firmly anti remake. I know he's coming around on remasters, or we wouldn't have gotten Oblivion last year. Um, so I definitely see where he's coming from on this.
I certainly can see this as a artist having an opinion on it, but the thing that's weird about that to me is his back catalog of games are perfectly slotted time wise for what is perfect for a remake. And I'll use The Witcher as an example. So it's out there that they're remaking Witcher 1, right? And it's kind of well known that after everyone played Witcher 3 that they look back at Witcher 1 and 2 and talk about how the gameplay of those games can kind of be a little weird and different as they've kind of evolved over time. So the idea of you get the story of Witcher 1 but updated with the kind of polished Witcher 3 gameplay is a really easy selling point for both new people and old people, right? You can still play Witcher 1, it still exists out there, and you can play the remake, and see how that kind of works for you. And the same thing is true. Like, imagine Fallout 3 remake, but with the gunplay of Fallout 4. Like, that to me is just like a net positive because it's not a very enjoyable, neither is New Vegas for that matter, but they're not like great shooters. That's why the whole Pit Boy exists, right? Where you can pause time and do all that because their actual gunplay is not like that great. Um, so things like that, I'm just like, that's an easy win. I feel like you would just make a ton of money doing that, right? And we know the leak of Fallout 3 remaster is coming, so we're gonna get that version of it. And he, not in that quote, but he talks about, their philosophy when they did Oblivion was basically, what if it was that game but with all of the polish you could give it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a perfectly viable uh route to go to. But I just think the remake version is right there in his back catalog as well, and would also do really well.
Yeah, and, and I can't disagree with that. Honestly, I think a lot of people would be thrilled about that, and I think that's a big part of why the modding scene for Bethesda games is so big. Um, and that was you mentioned the Oblivion remake and how they really, it's just like, well, we only patched it to make it look and run better. And that's what I really love. I haven't actually done, you know, tried it out, but I know just from clips, it still has that same Bethesda Oblivion jank where, uh, I was gonna. There's a million and one videos you could point to of Oblivion on the internet that it's just like, yeah, that's just crazy, goofy Oblivion at its best. Someone's like saying they love dogs, and you pan over and someone's hitting a dog with a sword. Like, it's fucking dumb shit that happens all the time in Oblivion, and I think the remaster still has that. So I think there's room for remaking, and I think there's room for remastering. And if you don't like it, the best part about that is you can always go back to what was there before. So I, yeah, I'm firmly of they can exist. Whether or not they're good or it all depends on who's doing it, who's working on it. So I don't know.
It'll be interesting to see. I'm sure,
Hmm.
the Virtuos, right, made Oblivion. The reporting, as far as I can tell, is the Fallout 3 remaster is internal, correct? Not being done by an external company.
I have not seen anything on that. I think Todd's been pretty firm on the point that most of them are working on Elder Scrolls 6 at this point, so I don't know. He could be
I mean,
lying.
he does have a 500-person studio, so I
That
mean, you
is
could
true.
have 50 people where I don't know. I mean, Virtuos is probably
Hmm.
much bigger than 50, but we did. I mean, Bluepoint was a 70-person studio at its biggest, and they were making remakes. So it's, you can do it with a relatively small team,
Yeah.
but nonetheless, it'll be interesting to see. It's a little unfortunate because I think a lot of games of that era, like the aughts into the early tens, when gameplay was really evolving, you can gain a lot by doing a remake and getting the polished end version.
Hmm.
But ultimately, it's what the artist wants, right? Like that. So either way is cool.
Hmm.
Moving on to talk about Starfield, everyone's favorite topic on the internet. And there had been a lot of rumors for a while now that there was going to be a sort of Starfield 2.0, a la when Cyberpunk fixed itself in all of these other ones, turning it from a game that everyone is strong, but the people who didn't like it suddenly could be like, yes, I actually really like this game now. And Todd Howard kind of came out and put cold water on that because he didn't want people to have too high of expectations. And I'll give you the quote. He said, "It is not Starfield 2.0. I've seen some of that. And for expectation setting, I think it's the kind of thing where if you like Starfield, we think you're going to love this." And a lot of the other kind of leaks around it have been stuff like they're going to try and remove some of the loading screens. So, like when you're going into a planet, instead of going to a loading screen, you do kind of what Star Wars, what's it called?
Oh, was it
What?
Battlefront?
No, the new one
Oh,
with the girl, Star Wars, whatever.
Outlaws.
Outlaws, where you fly into a cloud and
I
that's a
forgot
pseudo
about
loading
that.
screen, and then you fly
Hmm.
out of the cloud and then you're on the planet. So they're going to do a lot of stuff like that's kind of the big stuff that we've seen or heard, I should say, that they're going to do to kind of make it all feel more seamless. Where do you how does this make you feel? Were you looking forward to a Starfield 2.0? Had you heard about that? Are you excited, less excited for Starfield? Where are you at?
All right. So I'll just be totally honest. Starfield's not for me. I think I do love a good Bethesda RPG, but when Starfield dropped, it just felt like too different than what I was expecting. I think it's a fine game. It's just it didn't speak to me personally. I'm not sure what you can change to make it so that I want to jump back into this. I think you need to change what this game is at its core, and I don't think that's what this update is going to do. I
Yeah.
think Todd's very smart to get ahead of it like this because I've seen people talk about a behind closed doors experience that Starfield fans have gotten, and you're like, wow, guys, you're not going to believe this. And a lot of it is just kind of like hype farming interactions on like social media. I think at least because I don't know what world you put out a new version of Starfield and it's like becomes a must play game. So I don't think there's anything they can do to get that'll pull me back in. Maybe I jump in to try it. I don't know. I do kind of want to jump in and play with some of the mods I've seen, but ultimately, I don't think there's any way they pull me back into it, and I don't think that this is going to be like, bam, you got to play this game now. So that's where I'm at on this.
Yeah, I certainly think it was smart to get out ahead of this, especially if you're not going to do the 2.0. I think the big thing is you like all the people who thought that a 2.0 was coming is you really have to think about it like this. The reason Cyberpunk could do it is because the core of the game was really good. It
Mhm.
was there were some subsystems that they added, right, that made it better, and they fixed a lot of the bugginess and all of that kind of stuff. But the core of it was a strong game. And for a lot of people, that's not the case in Starfield. So you would have to basically redesign the crux of the game. And at that point, you're talking about not Starfield 2.0, but Starfield 2. And so they looked at it and went, how do we feel about our game? Todd has been consistent that he really likes what they did with Starfield. He admitted in this podcast that, you know, one of the things that people can kind of bounce off of is the exploration piece of it, right? Where they went with a very realistic exploration of a lot of it is nothing, just like it would be if you really explored space. And a lot of people don't like that aspect of it. And so you would need to invent new species or do some crazy stuff or take out a bunch of stuff where you couldn't go to these planets or whatever the case may be. And that was going to be a lot of work that what would the return on that be? Um, Especially because like he also referenced Starfield, according to Todd, does really big numbers on Game Pass, like from an hours perspective.
Hmm.
And so I think that they think it's a better game than the internet thinks it is. And they're that's their prerogative. I like the game. I don't think it's an incredible game. I think it's a somewhere between average and good game. And I'll play it when 2.0 comes out some more. I'm in the middle of like a hardest difficulty level kind of run on it. And
Hell yeah.
unfortunately, I'm running into the issue of 18 great new games coming in the next 2 weeks, it feels like. Uh, but it's there, and I'm going to continue to play it. And I'm excited for the kinds of changes that we've heard that are coming. But I'm glad they didn't go with this 2.0 total overhaul thing because they just need to focus on other stuff at this point, right?
Yep.
They need to move on to Elder Scrolls. They need to move on to
Yep.
Fallout 5. They need to Starfield 2 because they're going to make that, or Starfield Live Service, whatever the next edition of Starfield is. And just kind of, they he said they're going to continue to make content for the game, so
Hmm.
there will be new DLC, I'm sure, but really focus mostly on new content.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep. I agree.
And speaking of new content, the third and final quote that we'll talk about that he had from this podcast is about Elder Scrolls 6. Todd said, "We do have a certain style that we like and that our fans like that we want to get better and better at. I think in some ways, Fallout 76 and Starfield are a little bit of a creative detour from the classic Elder Scrolls Fallout, a Skyrim, or a Fallout 3, or a Fallout 4, Oblivion, where you're exploring a world in a certain way. And as we come back to Elder Scrolls 6, that we're doing now, we're coming back to the classic style that we've missed, that we know really, really well. And this is going to get a lot of people excited for obvious reasons, right? All the people who bounced off of Fallout 76 or bounced off of Starfield or think, what is Bethesda doing? Which is kind of the common narrative on the internet. Hearing them say Elder Scrolls 6 is going to go back to what we're good at is going to excite a lot of people. Does it excite you?
Absolutely. I think he kind of, in a way, nails what was wrong, not wrong, what was off about Starfield to me, and why I haven't tried Fallout 76 is that, yeah, they're just so corely, like, different at their cores to what I'm used to when it comes to Skyrim or Fallout. Uh, just recently with Fallout Season 2 coming to an end, I've jumped back into Fallout 3, and I've even started watching people play Skyrim again. It's just there's something about the way they build their worlds out and build out their quest structures that it's just like I just want to keep playing. I just want to keep exploring. And Starfield never gave me that, and Fallout 76 didn't have NPCs when it launched. So, um, I think hearing this is a big. It gives me hope for what Elder Scrolls 6 could be, because I think I don't want to like keep speaking like doom prophecies, but they do need this to hit. I think from Xbox as an Xbox Studios and as just Bethesda Studios to show that they still got it. I think they need this to hit, and I want it to hit because I love Elder Scrolls honestly. So I'm very excited for this. Hearing this, it gets me hyped. What does it do for you?
I think this scares me more than it excites me.
Classic contrarian Austin.
Yep. Here's the thing. I am much more in the camp of Bethesda is stuck in a 2010s mindset and it's 2026.
Hmm.
And I think
Okay.
that's what harms Fallout 76 and I think that's what harms Starfield. And I think that if the thought is we're going to go even farther back to that with Elder Scrolls, it's going to harm Elder Scrolls as well. Part of the thing, like Bethesda was on the cutting edge of RPGs and they've lost that. And so being the guy who's like, I'm going to go back to the hits instead of trying to evolve to what the world is now in a post Baldur's Gate 3, in a post Cyberpunk 2077 world, I think is scary. It can work. Like I'm not saying, it could do gangbusters, but I think that there's a lot of people that are core Bethesda fans that are deluding themselves if they think that the idea that going back to what they did before is the right answer and is going to make them feel great. It's like when you go back to games that you loved when you were a kid now, and it's like they're way hollower than you thought they were, right? Your rosy viewed picture of them because of the time they came out in is better than what they actually are after you've played newer, moderner games that have pushed the boundaries. And so this reads to me as not good, and not on its own, because just in the pure words of it, I could be like, okay, they recognize that the exploring of Starfield is not what people wanted. And so we'll go back to the old school, like storytelling exploration style that they had before. That in and of itself is a good thought. But when you apply it with the rest of the Todd Howard and Bethesda ethos of how they do things and their relentless sticking to the creative engine and all of that, it reads more like we're gonna curl up into our ball and go back to what we did before rather than we're gonna take the core things that we know work and bring it into the modern day.
Hmm. I'm gonna. All right, but like, hear me out. They're working on a new
Mm-hmm.
version of Creation Engine, which is the game engine behind Starfield. So they're up in their game a little bit. All right.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And that's not to say, like, if they would have came out and said, like, Cyberpunk did, right, that they're gonna be on Unreal Engine, that doesn't super excite me either. Like, I mean, all we've been seeing with the newest version of Unreal Engine is samey looking graphics and performance issues.
Hmm.
So I don't exactly like. I'm not trying to say it's strictly an engine thing, but I just think that part of the issue with Bethesda is they've had the same people in the same places for a very long time,
Yep. Yeah, I'll agree
and
with that.
what that leads to is not innovating and saying you're going to go backwards and not forwards when I already think you're behind is not a great uh framing of where you're going.
Hmm. Yeah, only thing I'll say to that is I think there's a lot of chance for them to prove you wrong with this new Elder Scrolls because I think Skyrim pushed things forward and away, Oblivion pushed things forward and away, and there's no. I mean, you're right to like be concerned that they've been stuck in the past for about like 15 years now. It's easy to look at Starfield and say, well, there's still that classic Bethesda jank. Same with Fallout 76. Same with Fallout 4 even. Um, so I totally get the hesitation. I'm not trying to poo poo that or dismiss that completely. But they do have a chance to prove themselves here, and I'm not saying they're going to nail it. It's way too soon to say. We haven't seen the game really, so yeah, I, you're not wrong to feel that way, and I totally get it for sure, and I
The
even agree
real
with you.
the real the way that they could convince me, and I guess they
Hmm.
couldn't even convince me with their words. The game has to just come out, right?
Right.
But the thing that they've never figured out is choice and consequence, right? And the consequence part of the choice.
Hmm.
Their games have always had choices, but largely the choices are pick this or that, and things don't really change regardless of what you pick. And you need to come into the new world of 2077 and Baldur's Gate 3 with your how much the consequences of your actions affect the world around you. And we'll see. I would love to believe that they can do that, but they haven't shown it. It was the issue with Fallout 4. It's an issue with Starfield. It even people looking back to Skyrim and saying it actually feels like there's consequence that there actually isn't in some ways. And that's so
Um,
far back that you get a little bit more of a pass there because that was really the world they were in then. But their newer stuff, not as much.
I'll push back on that just a little bit because I can't speak to Fallout 4, 76, or Starfield or whatnot, but I know Fallout 3 for sure. Megaton is iconic for making a choice and that affecting the world. Like that's just a town of NPCs is just gone if you make the that choice, and that's a lot of resources that you just don't have access to moving forward. And in Skyrim for sure, the Stormcloak and Imperial storyline like that, while the effect on the overall world is minimal, it does affect like which NPCs show up where and then what they call you. But um, yeah, again, can't
Which,
speak to Fallout 4
but
or
in
anything like that.
that's the thing. But this is where I totally agree with what you're saying. I think the
Hmm.
Megaton one is more of a point against than the Skyrim one is, in the
Right,
sense that
right.
the Skyrim one makes sense in the context of the time that it came out,
Yeah.
right? So like that's the level of consequence that came of choices at that time. And even
Hmm.
like at the time of Skyrim, it was probably pushing things forward in that sense. But
Yeah.
now in a world where we have Cyberpunk 2077 and we have Baldur's Gate 3
Hmm.
and the just all like other like worldly difference that the consequences that you can have based on the decisions you make
Hmm.
in comparison, like you have to step your game up.
Thousand
You
percent.
can't go back to what you had. And that's where I would say they need to they need to take the next step.
Yeah.
And they haven't shown us any signs of that is the real issue. Like I think for a lot of people the Starfield storyline is interesting but has the same issue of it doesn't really matter like if you are more towards this or that person in these different factions because ultimately you're kind of ending up in the same spot.
Yeah.
Whereas like Cyberpunk, right? I played through four different endings just to see, like, based on my decisions towards the end, how
Hmm.
vastly different those things can play out.
Yeah.
And that's what they need to find. And if they find that with the joy that Bethesda, the how good Bethesda is at creative storytelling connected to the exploration and all of that, they could, I mean, could be a game of the year contender. I mean, it's not, they have that ability. I just, the way that they speak about it scares me that of them realizing they need to do that.
Yeah. Well, I don't. I'm pretty sure at some point, and I don't think Todd directly answers it, but I do think during at some point during this interview that we're referencing here, I do think Greg even points out that Baldur's Gate 3 and Cyberpunk 2077 are both games that like where that kind of thing is super influential on how the story plays out. So I do know that they are aware of that. Whether or not they're able to, work off of that and implement something into their game remains to be seen. Because, like we said, all we've seen is a, you know, 10-second cinematic.
Right. Well before they even started doing anything in an engine with the game.
Yeah. Yep.
I and interestingly, I get we'll just see how the timelines work out, but there is kind of sort of a world where Elder Scrolls 6 and Cyberpunk 2, whatever they call it, come out relatively near each other. Like imagine Cyberpunk 2 comes out, let's just say May of a year, and they probably would more like June, whatever, like summer. It's the summer blockbuster game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Elder Scrolls 6 is the end of year Christmas blockbuster. Like you could get buried by Cyberpunk if you don't nail it. Now, there's plenty of situations where they don't come out in the same year, but I'm just saying there is a potential chance that that happens, and you need to be prepared for, GTA 6 is going to come, Cyberpunk 2 could be coming, the Witcher remake will, and slash or Witcher 4 could be out. Like these games that are all in the same vein, especially in the case of Witcher with the hack and slash stuff,
Mm-hmm.
where Cyberpunk doesn't necessarily have that gameplay, but there's going to be a couple more huge RPGs potentially coming before Elder Scrolls 6 comes out, and you need to be on their level.
Yeah. Yeah. Fun little tidbit. Skyrim and Witcher 2 came out the same year. There you
Mm,
go.
that is a tidbit. That's actually crazy to say, or not to say, but to think about,
Mm-hmm.
because I mean, Skyrim was huge everywhere, and not to say
If,
Witcher wasn't, but like Witcher 2, I didn't know existed until well after that. Like Skyrim had
yeah.
long gone before I had any idea what was going on in the Witcher world. I mean, Witcher 3 for me was really like before I even knew anything about The Witcher.
One more little tidbit. Skyrim came out in 2011. Mass Effect 2 was 2010. Mass Effect 3 was 2012. It's a different time.
Yeah. Bring back, like I said, was this last pod that I said this? Bring back the you build a platform and release 3 games in like a six to
Yeah.
7 year period.
Yep.
Like I need that back in my life.
Straight up. Straight
All
up.
right. We're gonna end it on a higher note. I guess you were high on that, so that was mixed. But we're gonna end with Steam Next Fest. For those of you that don't know, Steam Next Fest is Steam's big promotion for where they have hundreds of playable demos for games that are coming out over the next year or two, uh, for everyone to try. And Pat and I are going to give. I'll give one. I don't know, Pat. Did you decide if you're going to give one or two or how many? We're going to give some
Uh,
recommendations for ones that of games we think are going to be interesting and you should try.
I'm having trouble deciding, so I'm gonna say two.
Okay, go first then, and I'll go in the middle, and then you can finish it off.
All right, so I'm gonna start off with one that was brought to my attention. Both these games were brought to my attention a while ago, and I've not been able to play them because I don't think demos have been available until now. But one is called Densh Attack. I'm gonna spell it out because it's not spelled how you might think it is. It's called spelled DENSHATTACK exclamation mark. Um, it's a cel shaded art style. You're a train and you're grinding on rails and you're just going through different fun environments and it just looks balls to the walls insane. Um, and it just looks like it's oops. If you heard that audio on my stream, no, you didn't. Um, but it just looks like Tony Hawk mixed with Jet Set Radio mixed with Train, and I'm ready to try it out. Finally, what's the one you're looking forward to the most, Austin?
Oh, all right. This is one I think I've referenced this one before because I am very excited about it. It might have been, well, they announced it at was it Summer Games Fest? I think so. Anyway, it's Battlestar Galactica Scattered Hopes, which is a real time with pause strategy game where, if you guys know the story of Battlestar Galactica, you basically manage the fleet as they're trying to run from the Cylon fleet, and you have to deal with consequences of your actions. It's a roguelike style. So you make decisions and you have to deal with the consequences. You upgrade different different areas of your ship in the fleet so that you can gain different advantages. And this is, for obvious reasons, as I've referenced many times, right up my alley. I love these kinds of games, and I am very excited. I already have the demo downloaded. I just need to find the time.
That's the key, right?
That is the key, especially because we're, as of recording, 3 days away from the beginning of marathons, SummerSlam. So hopefully, maybe tomorrow, I'm gonna have to earmark it.
Yeah.
Uh,
God.
anyway, what finish us off? What's your second one that
All
you want
right.
everyone to hear about?
This one's a lot more targeted at like someone like me who grew up playing Star Fox 64 on the Nintendo 64. It's called Wild Blue Skies. It is exactly what I just described, Star Fox 64, but it's a new, obviously more modern art style. But it looks like, and just seeing like 5 seconds ago of gameplay, looks almost exactly what I imagined Star Fox 64, if it were made today, would look like. It's got a lot of the same movement feel. Your teammates are speaking like, "Ah, you saved me," like that kind of like radio chatter that like I'm so used to from Star Fox, just corny shit like that, and they're all goofy looking
Do a
animals.
barrel roll.
Exactly, case in point. And it looks like just another fun on rails shooter in a spaceship as anthropomorphic animals, and I'm here for it.
Shout out to indies being willing to do the retro game, but in the modern day,
Mm-hmm. Oh,
because that's
it's
always fun.
that might be my love language. Let's do what
Just
Nintendo won't.
like the this new generation of boomer shooters that are coming out. Good
Dude,
times. Good
oh my
times.
god. Mouse PI need it.
Oh, they just announced, unfortunately, that it got pushed back, but not long. I think it was in May originally, and now it's coming out mid-April. But
yeah. Ah, well.
I think that came
I'm
out
willing to
today.
wait. I'm willing to wait for that. That looks great.
I'm willing to wait too. If we can, this is a. Oh wait, all right, we're gonna close up right here. So this is gonna be an announcement, just because it goes along with this, that we're gonna be coming back with streaming games starting up here. I don't know if it'll be next week, maybe potentially, probably. There's a lot of games, so
Mm-hmm.
probably. But every other week we record the pod on Mondays, and then the weeks that we're not recording a pod will stream. If we can figure out how to do it, I want us to figure out how to do two people, one mouse, as in the mouse in the game, not the
Mm-hmm.
mouse to play with,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so that we can run through mouse PI for hire. If we can figure it out, I want to do it because that sounds like a hell of a
Yeah.
time. Anyway,
Sounds
there's
great.
the fun announcement to end the pod here. Other than that, if you like what we do on the pod side, hit the subscribe on the YouTube channel. We'll be back every other week, and anytime big major news drops, like I said, we'll also have the stream, and we're putting out snippets and shorts and all of that. We're trying to hit all of the different kinds of content. If you like a type of content that goes on this app or this website, depending on how you're watching it, we are trying to do it. So stick with us, and we will see you next time.
You heard that audio on my video. No, you didn't.